Did you know that over half of the world's 1.3 billion Catholics are women? But not one is allowed to become a priest? In 2023, for the first time in history, women were granted voting rights in a Vatican synod. A move unthinkable just a few decades ago. But is this the beginning of true change in Naam, or just symbolic? Today, we're diving into one of the oldest institutions on earth, and asking the question many dare not speak aloud. Can women ever truly lead in the Catholic Church? We'll explore what's actually changing inside the Vatican. We'll look back at the hidden history of women in church leadership. We'll hear both the growing calls for reform and the intense backlash. And finally, we'll ask, what's next for the world's largest Christian church? Let's begin. Let's start with the facts. In October 2023, Pope Francis made a move no pope before him ever had. He gave laypeople, including women, the right to vote in a Vatican synod. That might sound like a small procedural update, but inside the world of Catholic governance, it's a shift of tectonic proportions. For centuries, the Synod of Bishops was exactly that, bishops only. Male, ordained, hierarchical. Now, a new precedent. A signal, however cautious, that the voices of non-ordained people, and especially women, are not just to be heard, but to count. It's the kind of shift that theologians will debate for decades. Then there's the story of Sister Natalie Beckard, a name that's becoming historic in its own right. In 2021, Pope Francis appointed her as Undersecretary of the Synod of Bishops, effectively making her the first woman to have voting rights in such a body. She didn't walk through the door, she helped open it. It's not about power, she said in an interview. It's about service. But yes, this is a shift, and she's not alone. In 2022, Francis appointed 3 women to the dicastery for bishops, the powerful body responsible for recommending who becomes a bishop around the world. Imagine that, for the first time in history, women are helping decide which men get to lead the church. These are not token appointments, these are roles that shape doctrine, influence appointments, and advise the Pope directly. Also worth noting, Barbara Jatta runs the Vatican Museums, the first woman to hold that position in over 500 years of papal art and cultural heritage. Francesca Di Giovanni served in the Vatican Secretariat of State, handling multilateral affairs, representing the Holy See in international negotiations. Outside the Vatican walls, the momentum continues. All over the world, Catholic women lead diocesan offices, teach theology, manage seminaries, and in some cases even serve as parish administrators, performing nearly every function a priest does except for sacramental rites. And here's the quiet revolution. In places where priest shortages are critical, particularly in rural Latin America, parts of Africa, and even Germany and France, women are de facto leaders of their faith communities. They preach, they counsel, they bury the dead, they baptize in emergencies, they hold the church together. Yet despite all this, they still hit a glass ceiling. Because ordination, the formal recognition of spiritual authority, remains closed to them. So yes, the Vatican is changing, doors are opening, voices are being heard, roles are expanding, but some doors remain locked, and the question is, how much longer can that last? This isn't just about job titles, it's about a deeper question. Can women hold spiritual authority in a church built on centuries of male leadership? The official answer is no. The Catholic Church teaches that only men can be ordained as priests. The reasoning? Jesus chose 12 male apostles, and priests are seen as their successors, standing in persona Christi in the person of Christ. But, is that the whole story? In early Christianity, women played real, recognized roles. The New Testament refers to Phoebe, a deacon, Junia, outstanding among the apostles, and many unnamed women who led house churches, financed missions, and preached the faith. There's archaeological evidence too, inscriptions and mosaics that depict women in liturgical or leadership roles, especially in the first few centuries. So what changed? As Christianity merged with empire and became institutionalized, it adopted the hierarchical and patriarchal structures of the time. By the Middle Ages, church law had fully excluded women from ordained leadership. Their voices were redirected to convents or silenced. But in the 20th century, especially after the Second Vatican Council, things began to shift. Catholic women started reclaiming their space. They studied theology, organized movements, and called for recognition, not as rebels, but as faithful insiders. And now, their voices are louder than ever. In the United States, 7 in 10 Catholic women say they support female deacons. In Europe, Australia, and parts of Latin America, calls for female priests are growing, especially among younger Catholics. But official teaching hasn't budged. In 1994, Pope John Paul II declared the priesthood closed to women forever. In 2010, the Vatican controversially labeled attempts to ordain women as a grave crime under church law. Pope Francis has taken a gentler approach, opening study commissions, appointing women to key Vatican roles, but he's also said the door to priesthood is closed. Still, is leadership about gender or about calling? Can the ability to shepherd a faith community really depend on anatomy? Across the world, women already lead in practice, running parishes, teaching doctrine, burying the dead, caring for the poor. So maybe the real question isn't, can women lead in the church? It's this: when will the church officially recognize what's already happening? Let's not sugarcoat it. Wherever there's reform, there's resistance, and the Catholic Church is no exception. The movement for female leadership has triggered deep, emotional backlash, not only from the church hierarchy, but from lay Catholics as well. To some, even asking the question of women's ordination is a kind of heresy. Why? Because for many, this issue isn't just doctrinal, it's existential. Conservative theologians and bishops argue that ordaining women would contradict the core identity of the priesthood, which they believe is male by divine design. They point to tradition, scripture, and centuries of unbroken precedent. The Church has no authority whatsoever to confer priestly ordination on women, wrote Pope John Paul II in 1994, and he insisted this teaching must be definitively held by all the faithful. That statement, Ordinatio Sacerdotalis, was meant to end the debate, but instead it became a flashpoint, because on the other side, reformers argue that the Church has confused tradition with divine will, and that exclusion based on gender is a human construct, not a divine one. And here's the challenge. Even small steps, like appointing women to leadership roles or studying the role of female deacons, are met with fierce suspicion. If you open the door to deacons, you're halfway to priests, one cardinal warned. That fear of a slippery slope shapes much of the resistance. And then there's the issue of unity. Catholicism is global. 1.3 billion members across wildly different cultures. What's progressive in Germany might be seen as scandalous in Uganda or the Philippines. Some bishops worry that changing core structures would fracture the church, splitting it along cultural and ideological lines. They're not entirely wrong. Already, synods in places like Germany's synodal way have called openly for female ordination and same-sex blessings. Meanwhile, bishops in Africa and Eastern Europe have pushed back, warning against Western liberalism. So this isn't just a theological debate, it's a culture war within the church. And it can get personal. Women pushing for change are often labeled rebellious, disobedient, even dangerous. Some have been excommunicated for participating in unofficial ordinations, others are silenced, denied jobs, or kept out of church spaces, but still, they persist. Because for many Catholic women, this fight isn't about power, it's about dignity, recognition, and the right to answer a spiritual calling. Let's pause here. Think about the irony. Women who lead Catholic schools, who direct diocesan programs, who teach seminarians, aren't considered eligible to preach a homily at Sunday Mass. They can hold a theology PhD, but not stand at the altar. And that gap between function and recognition creates deep frustration, especially for younger Catholics who value equality, transparency, and representation. The risk for the Church? Not just controversy, but irrelevance. In many parts of the world, especially the West, young Catholics are leaving. And for some, the refusal to open leadership to women is one more reason to walk away. So yes, the backlash is real, but so is the cost of standing still. So, what comes next? No one expects the Vatican to ordain women tomorrow, but conversations once considered taboo are now happening. In seminaries, in dioceses, in Rome. In 2024, the Vatican launched further studies into the possibility of female deacons, an ancient role with roots in the early church. And Pope Francis, he's walking a tightrope, urging openness while avoiding doctrinal rupture. Tradition is not the worship of ashes but the preservation of fire, he once quoted. Whether that fire leads to full female ordination, or remains symbolically contained, only time will tell. But one thing is clear, women are already leading, in parishes, in theology, in everyday Catholic life. The question is not if women have a role, it's how fully that role will be recognized. And as younger generations ask harder questions, the Church will have to answer, not just with doctrine, but with courage. Thanks for joining me on this journey through faith, power, and change. Whether you're Catholic, curious, or just love digging into history, this conversation matters. Because it's not just about religion, it's about identity, justice, and the future of one of the world's oldest institutions. Subscribe for more deep dives into history, religion, and social change. Like the video if it sparked your thoughts. And let us know in the comments, should women be allowed to become priests? Until next time, I'm Alex. Stay curious.